Mary had just finished nursing her daughter and returned the infant to her carriage, making sure she was warm enough for the cold weather outside. Born on March 4th, 1896, to Mary Handley Lloyd and her husband Harper, Josephine George Lloyd was now almost 9 months old. Of course, her name had caused immediate controversy with Mary's mother, Elizabeth, whom Mary had long ago dubbed the source of all controversy. Elizabeth was perfectly content with Josephine, Harper's mother's name, even though she would have preferred Catherine, which was her mother's name. She did, however, have strong objections to her granddaughter having a masculine middle name. Mary had named her after her deceased father, Geoffrey, whose middle name was George. What clinched that decision was that Mary was also a big fan of the writer George Sand, whom she admired for her independent spirit and rebellious streak. Elizabeth argued that George Sand was a pseudonym and meant to sound masculine in order to hide the author's gender. In the long run, it didn't matter, because the so-called controversy didn't last long. Everyone, including Mary, naturally gravitated to calling her Josie. Sometimes babies have a way of defining themselves, and so it was with Josie. Elizabeth insisted on calling her Josephine, but even she knew she was fighting a losing battle. Mary had made an important decision about her career. While Josie was still too young for school, she refused to take any cases that she knew would consume a great deal of time. That wasn't always easy to determine, but Mary did the best she could. Of course, it meant a serious hit to her income, but Josie was worth it. Mary would often bring Josie to work if she didn't have any client meetings scheduled, or when Harper, a journalist, was rushing toward a deadline, or even just to get out of the house for a change of scenery. Her office was in the back of Laszlo's books, and when the store wasn't busy, she and Laszlo would continue their intellectual jousts, an activity of which neither of them ever seemed to tire. On this particular day, business was indeed slow. As she entered the store wheeling Josie in her carriage, Laszlo was immersed in a conversation with a man who looked to be in his 60s. He was well-dressed, had gray hair, and sported mutton-chop sideburns. He looked familiar to her, but she couldn't quite place him. "That's one of my favorites," exclaimed Laszlo. "The wordplay is simply brilliant." "Brilliant," responded the well-dressed man in a refined British accent. "I'll accept that as an accurate description." The two men laughed as Mary approached. "Laszlo," said Mary, "glad to see you're having such a jolly time in spite of the eerie quiet that permeates your store." "It's all ebb and flow. This too shall pass." "Taking a Zen approach to business, are we?" "It's called experience. If you want religion, there's a fantasy section in the back." "I say, Laszlo," said the well-dressed man, "are you an atheist?" Mary decided to answer, more like an agnostic waiting for proof. "Ah, a foot in each world. That way, if you die and there is no God, you were right. If there is one, you can tell him you've been searching for him all your life. Not a bad strategy." "A strategy that can only end in my death," said Laszlo. "I opt for remaining uninformed." Josie began to cry. Mary took her out of her carriage and held her. "All this talk of other worlds and death has upset Josie,"